Okay. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 89th episode of the Englix Broadcast. As I'm getting closer to the 100 mark, I have never thought of it. I know, it's getting a hang on myself, and it's taking a toll on my broadcast speed because I'm literally getting so many messages that I can't juggle. I was about to have the gentleman that I'm having right now. It's 4 a.m. by the way, but I know everybody is hush hush, but I do have certain fans from the United States. So if you guys are awake, you're gonna have to watch certain portions of it. Also, I want to say, of course, we were supposed to have it yesterday night around 10 p.m. because that's the prime time. That's where most of my audience is awake. But when it's published, you guys can skip through it and watch the entire broadcast. What is it all about? Well, we talk about psychology. Over English broadcast, we talk about psychology a lot because mindset is something that needs to be updated. It's like a firmware. Somehow we need to educate ourselves. I'm not trying to pontificate anything over here. However, I do have certain people who have pondered upon it. They thought about these things. I'm not an expert, and I probably cannot even comment on this, but I have a gentleman who has thought about it through and has published this thing, and he's quite active on social media as well. So without a further ado, Mr. Chris Templeton, would you please take the screen?
Well,
What's
hello.
up?
Hey, Srav. Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. How are you?
I am fine. You look not quite different from what you look tomorrow. What's the secret?
It's got to be the Hawaiian shirt.
Hawaiian shirt, ukulele, and all that. Tell me about I like the laid back. You're so relaxed. You're so how old are you right now?
I'm the big 60. Can you believe it?
No, you look like 20.
Well, my wife loves to tell me that I've got all this soap that I haven't washed out of my hair. So,
there you go.
60 years old.
Just 60 years old, and you still are thinking about these stuff.
Yeah, guess what? Most people are. No,
I
still work, but I work doing what I love, so that helps. I don't expect to ever retire, although I do think that at some point I'll switch from doing online marketing and video work to doing my passion project, the stories we tell, for the rest of my life. I really love it.
Tell us about yourself. Tell us about the venture that you work right now, what you're working on right now.
In terms of the stories we tell?
Yep.
So I guess the way to frame it up is a number of years ago, well, 18 years ago, I had a stepmother who called herself she said, "I'm your evil stepmother," with a big old grin. And she sent me to read a book called The Power of Now by a guy named 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞. And he's a spiritual guy, but what I really liked about him, short book, but what I really liked about him is he's not the kind of guy who says, "Oh, everything's religious is wrong. This is the way to do it, so and so." But one of the things that he said, and I'm still looking for the exact quote, I haven't been able to find it, is, "We are incredibly good as the human race at driving ourselves insane." And I was like, wait a minute, no, that's not me. That's you. That's everybody else. But it really hit me like, oh my God, maybe it is me. And so I started putzing around with it, doing some reading, that sort of thing, and started to develop a series of questions that I could ask myself, and then I could give to other people to ask. And I was shocked at the response that I mean, I still have people that write me and say, "Oh my God, the story I told today," or "You should see the story my dad's telling," or whatever the case may be. And so the thing that's been really rewarding for me about it is I really haven't worked very hard to take this public until just recently. And it sticks with people. And so, you know, my feeling is, what's exciting for me about this is that I know that it's changing people's lives in a really lovely way that doesn't require, it's more like, I equate it to putting on a pair of clear corrective lenses, not rose-colored glasses. This is not positive thinking. And to be able to look at anything, my own behavior, the behavior of my kids, my wife, politically, you know, this model, as far as I can tell so far, is universal in its application when it comes to human behavior. And it's just designed to be, you said earlier, you know, you don't think you'll be able to comment on what I'm talking about. Look, this is all about common sense. 3 simple questions and a whole ton of common sense. And that is it. So, so from that, you know, I've developed this model, which I'll show you in a minute. But the whole idea is for anybody that looks at this and says this is a fit for them, and there will be people that it's not a fit. You know, it's universal in its application, but that doesn't mean that it's a fit for everybody. There are people that live differently, or, you know, live in what I call little me land, that are never going to get this. But there are people that are trying to be more authentic in their lives, and I think it's a really lovely way for them to have a new perspective on their behavior and the behavior of those around them.
So you said that you know, you were inspired by the book "The Power of Now," and it had an impact on you way back, 18 years back. But you started to work on this thing quite recently. So do you think that this is a pandemic creativity or
Oh,
something?
no. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I've been working on this for 18 years, and I just started really trying to bring it public in the last, really in the last year or so. So no, this is something that I've been working on.
So why now? Maybe you think that pandemic is really getting the, like, it's really reflecting that the people are really going insane, locked in their houses and all of that.
There's certainly an element of that, and you know, I mean, for people that are dealing with the pandemic and struggling with it, this is definitely a way for them to help. I think what really got me going is I have a very good friend who I had told about the model about probably 6 or 7 years ago now, and she got together with me in February of last year, so right before the pandemic hit. She's like, we should do something together on that. So she's had a rough go in terms of her upbringing, and she just likes to chat and see how the model applies to what she's doing. So we apply it to what she's doing, and it's not therapy. I want to be really clear about that. This is not therapy. This isn't positive thinking. It's not a new religion. It's just a way of looking at things. So we look at her relation. We've talked about relationships and how she can square things up with things that have happened in the past, how to be better at work and dealing with people instead of flying off the handle. So that really got us going. I think we've got about 14 or 15 of those up now on the Stories We Tell. If you search the Stories We Tell on YouTube, it'll come right up. So anyway, that's kind of how I got going on it. So want to hear some questions?
Of course. I mean, I have the deck in front of me right now. Let's dive right in. Let's analyze what you got over here.
Okay, cool. And by the way, you know, one of the things that kind of where I am in this process is I really feel like I've nailed down 95% of this. I'm sure there's still room for growth. But one of the things I want to encourage any of your viewers to do is to hit me up on Facebook or on Instagram at All the Stories We Tell, and let me know what you think of this. And if you think it's garbage, I really want to have a chat with you. I mean, I don't think it is, but I'm really looking for, one of the things that we talk about a lot is people have what they call confirmation bias. Once I think I know the truth, all I do is run around trying to confirm it. And I'm definitely as guilty of that as anybody.
Like if you like one of the things that I've learned, like going public on social media with your brand, there are a lot of haters as well,
Yes.
who sort of use a mask their hatred with criticism. It isn't criticism. So you need to filter that out, because a lot of people just hate, oh, he's just a Ponzi artist and fucking all sorts of things, right? And it goes for, like, you're an online marketer, you know this. So these trolls, you need to ignore them. But I think that real podcasters like me, real podcasters, they don't hate. I wanna hear all the stories you got.
Well, and I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about where those haters live in this model, because, like I said, it's universal in its application. So anyway, let's just run through the questions. The first question is, and the one that I think I had heard from Eckhart Tolle is, what's the story I'm telling? Like, what is it that I'm thinking in my head about myself, about what's going on, my relationships, being a parent, how I am at work, whether I'm an individual contributor or a manager. And we frame it up as stories, because what I want people to understand more than anything else is that the narrative that you have in your head can be changed. And from my standpoint is, if you want meaning and you want happiness, like really authentic happiness, it's all about recognizing that it's a story and then doing what you need to do to change it. Makes sense?
I got a question there.
Shoot.
There are so many stories, though. There are so many stories. Like, are you trying to make a self, like, biography, autobiography in your head, try to, like, use the extract of it all? So
not really.
What do you exactly mean by story?
So what I'm saying is, if you think about how you think about yourself and the world around you, that thinking, it comes in two basic forms. One is literally in words. We have a little narrator in our head that's always talking to us, and a lot of people don't even recognize that they have that, because it's very quiet until you learn to listen to it. And then then the other thing that happens in terms of story is that we also visualize things. I may look out at the street and see a beautiful car and think to myself, and just feel bad, like, I don't have that. I don't really want one of those, right? So stories is what I want to do is define your thinking in terms of words and in terms of the pictures in your head, as bundle those all up as stories. And we have different. Go ahead.
Okay. So, for example, if I look at a car and I feel envious that, I probably don't have it myself, then there's a story going on in my head. I remember the time I had my first car. Oh, it looked like this. And do you mean that is sort of a flashback? Okay,
absolutely. All of that. It can be any of that. It's however you're looking at any situation, past, present, or future, that you have a feeling around, is basically it. What you're doing is, when you saw that car and it reminded you of a car from when you were a kid, that's really a pretty cool story. Like, it's a feel-good story. But the other way that story can go is, oh, look at that guy, he's got that car, I wish I could have that, I don't have it, I suck, blah blah blah, or whatever the case may be. Does that make sense? So
it does make sense. Yeah.
And it's not about creating a story of who I am. It's not really it. It's not like
sort of
creating
self-reflection, like you're reflecting on your own memories and your thoughts.
But individually, in topic by topic. So think about it. There's some places for me, I've been married for a long time, and I'm over the moon for my wife. And so like my story there isn't that big because I just feel good. I've had issues with business success in the past that have been really, really big struggles for me. So I can be in some places, have really good stories about what's going on, super comfortable, make you feel good. And in other places, stories that don't feel good. And I feel, And so really where this whole thing started, it was this idea of we're so good at driving ourselves insane. And so those tend to be stories that don't serve us and make us feel icky. And those are the ones that we typically need to work on, right? If I've got a great relationship with my wife, I mean, I've got to do the work, but it's not like, figuring out how to be more successful in business and have a better attitude about it.
Right. Different stories have different themes, you're saying.
Exactly.
And also yeah, and at the same time, I really do want to talk about insanity. I talk about
Me too.
mental health, because this is something that that a lot of people go through. But let's go through the model first, and then we have a series of follow-up questions. Of course, let's attack it from different angles. All right.
Let's go to the second question. So that's the question one is, what's the story I'm telling? And then question two is, does this story, this thinking in my head, does it serve me in this moment? In this moment, in this moment, in this moment? It's so important, because it could be that I had a tough upbringing and my parents treated me like garbage. And so I did things and had stories about them to try and negotiate my way, to growing up and coping with that behavior. But a lot of those stories stick with us over time. And as adults, they don't serve us anymore, right? And when you're angry at our parents or, frustrated with a past relationship or whatever the case may be. So the key to this question is it serving me right now? And so what's important about that is most of the time you can tell if the story that you're telling about any subject is serving you or not. Like, does it feel like when I think about that thing that it kind of lights me up in a positive way, or does it feel like I've turned on the dark switch and I'm like, got to deal with that again? Does that make sense?
I get what you're thinking. Yeah. I mean, there. I mean, part of overthinking and all of that, anxiety specifically, because we reflect upon negative memory, like portions around that, they like the first heartbreak, which probably seems to be quite beautiful and poetic in your 60s, but when you're recently going through a heartbreak, or you lost a job and all sorts of things, and you or an incident where or you're confronted physically or verbally, you're confronted by someone, these thoughts, these memories are vivid. These are oftentimes as vivid as the positive ones, like the time you first won something relevant. I cracked an entrance exam recently. I'm really proud of it. So this is vivid in my memory.
Yeah.
This is vivid in my memory. Also, the negative one, when I punch somebody, that's also quite vivid.
Right.
So you're saying that these negative ones are solely responsible for driving you insane, or is it the positive one as well?
It's a great question. It can be. So when we get into the model in a minute or two, I'll show you how that works. But we can have really, really positive thoughts that don't serve us at all. They're way harder for us to kind of catch. But it's the guy. Think about, one of my favorite examples is, think about the person that wants to be enlightened. And they say, "Hi, how are you, Saurav? I hope things are going well for you. Things are going well for me." And you're like, "Oh, dude, I am not feeling that at all." So that's stuff that doesn't serve me or serve that person, but it's super positive. So it's not a question about whether it's positive or negative. They tend to be more negative stories, at least the ones that we catch. But we can have negative emotion on both on the other side of this that does serve us. I can be really frustrated with a coworker in a way that serves me. It's not likely that I'm going to be angry and screaming that's ever going to be in a way that serves me. But so it can be either one. It's just that negative ones tend to be the easier ones to kind of land.
Okay. Yeah, we always, positive emotions also take over your psyche sometimes. Like I don't know. I mean like if we go to the 7 deadly sins, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have treachery. You also have pride, right?
Yep.
Pride comes out of positive things. So I'm the greatest. I just defeated a huge army out there. But it's a positive thought, but it also takes over you.
You hit it right on the head. Like that is exactly the type of positive thoughts or thinking that doesn't serve me. And it can be very, very much that I can change that thinking to be thinking that does serve me, but I've got to do it consciously.
All right. So let's go ahead with the pyramid. All right. So it needs to be relevant. The story needs to serve at the very moment. For example, right now, the story is the fact that it's like Inception, story within a story. All right, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Number 3.
Yeah. So, but yes. So we're looking at what we're trying to do when we say in this moment is we're not trying to justify why it was a good story then, or why it's a good story for the future. In this moment, is it serving me? And most people have just a gut feeling about that. It's surprising to me how people know that. So anyway, the third question is, assuming that it's not serving me, is there a more authentic story I can tell? Like it's those 3 questions, I swear will give you more meaning in your life and will give you more happiness when you start to apply them. And obviously, it gets to the point where you're like, I wonder if I could tell a better story about that. Like you obviously distill it down, but those are the 3 questions. And, and so then the question is, what's an authentic story, right? An authentic story is something that I feel grounded and centered in. I don't tend to feel like a victim. I don't tend to feel powerless. I feel like I have agency in my life. I'm more solution oriented versus being a victim of, feeling powerlessness and somebody else's behavior. So those are the 3 questions. Does that make sense?
Does make sense. I mean, you sort of in this model, you're focusing on identifying a story, and making it relevant to the present state, and then you're sort of creating a narrative around it with other stories that builds a larger one. So yeah, I mean it's perfect for public speaking in general, though. Like I know you mentioned The Power of Now, but there are these ageless books, self-help books like Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yep.
They also have similar, of course, they didn't visualize it and present it like you did, but they have similar ideas, right? That you gotta have to make sure that what you say is concise and relevant, and you need to self-reflect,
and it feels authentic. I think that my favorite word in this is, do I feel authentic in what I'm thinking? And that's where I think, with things like Think and Grow Rich, where people miss the mark on that is that what he's not saying is fake it till you make it. He's saying, find a way to tell the story of what it is that you want, from my standpoint, in a way that serves you in the moment. And so it can't serve me in the moment if it doesn't feel real, right? And we can talk about that all day long, with goal setting and affirmations. I'm rich and abundant. Well, I don't feel rich and abundant. So what can I do to tell an authentic story or have an authentic affirmation that's going to serve me? I'm not rich and abundant now, but I really feel like I can make steps one at a time to move in that direction. Feel a whole lot better and a whole lot more authentic.
Okay, all right. So progressive overload. You're saying slowly progress it with micro additions, right? That's good.
The whole thing about is it the journey or the end state that you're looking for. If you're telling,
Is
go
this
ahead.
the end of the deck, or do you
Oh,
have
no,
more text to say?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll show you the model a little bit now. So what happens is,
Ooh, animation.
like that. Oh, God, I
Fancy.
love that. And can you believe that's PowerPoint too? It works. So if the question that is the most important in so many ways is question 2, does this serve me in the moment? And the thing that's interesting from my standpoint is it's a binary. It only has a yes or a no answer with me. In other words, it either does or doesn't. So if it doesn't serve me, we say my behavior is above the line. So if it doesn't serve me, it's up here. And if it does serve me, it's below the line. Okay.
Right.
So obviously what I want to do, my goal becomes that I want to tell more stories down here and migrate these ones down to places, to things that do serve me. My dad was the biggest jerk in the world, but man, oh man, looking back on what he did, I know for sure now that he was doing the best job that he knew how. He wasn't perfect. He had his flaws. And now, because I can tell that story down here, I feel like
turning a negative aspect of a story into a positive angle.
No, see, you're so close, but no. And this is what I will stress again and again and again is this is not about positive thinking. What I don't want to do is I don't want to say, oh, pretend that dad wasn't a jerk. When it's authentic, we look at the full spectrum, the negative and the positive, to create a story that serves me. So my dad really was a jerk in a lot of ways. He was very, very self-centered. He liked to screw around. And thank God I don't have any of that stuff. So what I was able to do is to create a story that was basically, my dad did a lot of things that I did not like. And thank God, for some reason, I didn't follow in his footsteps with the negative stuff. But he also did really, really awesome stuff. Like, he was really good when I was growing up with making sure that me and my friends were taken care of. Yeah, I had a friend who crashed his car, and my dad was right there making sure that Ramon was taken care of and that he didn't get in trouble with the police. Like, that's how my dad rolled. You're saying.
So that's what you mean by authentic.
Yes.
Even the positive ones needs to be real. But my question over here is this. We might not see it through. Like, most of the people with daddy issues.
Yep.
Like, they might just say that my daddy was a jerk. They might not look into the positive side of it. So do you agree that positive thinking does have an effect on this model?
Absolutely. But I think it's not a positive effect. I think if what you try to do is just say, oh, my dad was the greatest thing in the world, or, my dad was really a good guy, and pretend that all the negative stuff didn't exist, that it continues not to serve us. We pretend.
What I'm saying is my dad was the biggest jerk in the world, but he did fix the car, and he did provide for the family. He did pay the bills.
Yes.
But the word "but." So do you think that one, because I mean that this is a basic thing that we talk about in CBT as well, as cognitive behavioral therapy as well. That you gotta have to shift the angles to make sure that you look at things differently. These are
holistically.
Exactly. But like we were saying, you're talking about authentic stories. The issue that what I'm trying to understand here, like, how do I make a story authentic though? Because again, there are abundance of stories over here. This little thing, this real estate between 2 years is so complicated that you have memories, they intertwine. Sometimes when you grow older, it doesn't become that vivid, right? Memories intertwine, they change, the details change. So how to really make it authentic?
Well, it's practice, and one of the things that I say all the time, it's to me the one of the most important aspects of how do I go forward with this is I frame my life as practice. Like I'm always practicing to be better, just like a doctor or a lawyer. They're always, good doctors are always reading. They're always trying to stay up. And so the thing is here's some ways to answer the question about authentic stories. Authentic stories live in appreciation and not in gratitude, because we'll talk about that maybe later, but I'm not a big fan of gratitude because it doesn't allow me to deal with the negativities. I can appreciate that my dad was narcissistic and was very self-centered. I didn't like it, but I appreciate where it came from. I appreciate that his dad was his own variety of narcissistic. So what I'm doing is I'm putting form around what typically was a very negative story and creating a way to look at it in a way that I feel appreciation across the board, not condoning, never condone my dad's behavior, a lot of my dad's behavior, but I can appreciate how he got there and why he got there. And that appreciation is what allows me, this is how we move from judgment to
so a little bit like stoic approach. Like you do not have a strong emotion driving your narrative. You need to have a little bit of stoicism in your mind, that you do not you remain neutral, and that helps your authenticity. I get you.
That's basically right. I mean, what happens is when you're below that line, you are more stoic. You still have a range of emotion available to you, but you when you're above that line, the strength of emotion is much stronger. As a matter of fact, let me just show you what I mean. So what happens is, if you think about it, come on, go.
Lesser little me, authentic in me. Okay.
So
So you when you start acknowledging these things, you go from lesser me or little me to authenticate me. All right.
Authentic. And then there's another level that I call enlightened me, and we'll talk about that in a second. But one of the things I just want to touch on is
that's what we want. We're gonna, by the end of this broadcast, I'm gonna turn into little Buddha. That's what's up.
Yeah. You're not gonna like what that means, but that's okay. It's all good. But one of the things that you did is you cracked up when I said little me, or when you read little me. Like people get it. They're like, oh my God, I'm in little me mode. My son would say to me, Dad, are you in little me mode? I'm like, yes, I'm not ready to leave there, Mac, but yes, I'm in little me mode. And so understanding that if I'm above that line, I'm in little me mode, kind of the characteristics tend to be, I'm fearful. It's fear-based, number one. I'm in problem orientation mode. I'm kind of looking for the worst of everything, or I'm looking for the best of everything, and that's not serving me either. I have a sense of being powerless or being a victim are very common. That's where those types of feelings live. It's all above the line in little me land. And so when you think about it, like going back to Eckhart Tolle and him saying, we're so good at driving ourselves insane. This is where we drive ourselves insane, right?
All right.
And so with authentic me, what I'm doing is I'm moving these stories with appreciation, with practicing more holistic stories about whatever the issue, and each one of these is an issue. This is not overall how my life is. It's issue by issue by issue. Makes sense? In other words, it's my dad issue, it's my my business issue, or whatever the case may be, that the places that I struggle, that what I want to do is move them down this way. Okay. Makes sense?
Makes sense.
So then when you're in authentic me mode, you tend to be stoic. It's not a word that I use a lot, but I think that's
what do we think about
characterization. I don't know enough about it to say. I've read just a little bit. It's not. I think it's on the right track. I can't really comment on stoicism.
It's so neutral. Like I don't think it's quite that practical as well, because it's something that you could like ponder upon, but Stoicism is something that like you remain neutral all the time. It's not
I
possible.
guess that's what concerns me about it is my guess is for a lot of people, Stoicism lives up here. It's, I'm just going to disconnect from my emotions and my feelings of who I
Yeah.
am. So I'm living up there. Whereas what I think is, I want to be fully connected to the full range of the story. I never want to let go of the fact of my dad's poor behavior or my dad's good behavior. And because I can appreciate that whole thing, I move down here where I'm neutral in a lot of aspects, or even positive and sometimes negative, but I'm connected to it. I'm not trying. I guess that's the thing that I'm reticent about with Stoicism is Stoicism feels to me like I'm just holding everything back and having a neutral attitude. And I don't think that serves you. If Stoicism means I like to look at the whole story, put it in perspective, then that to me is down here, and that's a good thing.
I think with Stoicism is more about not having a reactions to stuff, because they do have, like Marcus Aurelius, right? Marcus Aurelius, well, there have been Stoic thinkers before Aurelius, I think, but Aurelius is somebody who, like he put it on the map, right? So what he did, I think his thought was like mostly like you do acknowledge like his kids died, right? He had kids that died on the battlefield, I think. He acknowledged it. So acknowledgement is there, but I think it's about the reaction. Stoicism more about the reaction. So how does it fit in your model though? So do you think it's something that acknowledgement is there in your model? Acknowledgement is, I think it's a good keyword for your, like, authenticity comes out of acknowledgement.
Yes.
But what's the next step? Reaction? Is this something that could fit into your model?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's a big piece of why I'm still reticent about the concept of Stoicism is, you know, what I'm not saying is, hey, when you do this practice enough and you really internalize the model, the only place you're going to live here and it's going to be great. It's just garbage, right? I'm always going to have things that happen all over the place for me. And what my goal ends up being is, can I have less of a reaction to the things that are tough and get to a place that serves me more quickly than being stuck in a negative place, you know, that I can't let go of.
So the problem with it is that reaction might be a short-term answer, right?
It
Reaction
is a short-term answer. That's perfectly legitimate, right? That's what I'm saying is there are going to be times that you're going to Little Me Land, you're going to be pissed, and that's just the way it needs to be until you have a chance to breathe and start to relax and find that place. So I'm never, ever saying you're never going to go, once you practice, you're never going to go into Little Me Land. That's just not true. You just won't be, as the strength of emotion just won't be there. Does that make sense?
So this sort of this is a structure of self-awareness and reflection that helps you develop a better perspective every time you have a negative thought.
And the other thing is that it may not even happen. You may not even do this practice when you're having that thought. There are times I was upset with my wife about 6 months ago. She missed a meeting. She was late, and so I ended up coming home, and I was pissed, and I knew it. And I knew that when I got in the door, she was going to say, hey, I'm really sorry. And she did. And I said, I understand it. I know that if I have any further conversation with you right now, I'm going to blow a gasket, and you don't want that. And I don't want that. Like, that's all the self-awareness that I was able to muster up in the moment. Now, the next morning, we got up, we smiled, we laughed at each other, we talked about it. And so part of the other thing about this idea of, can I tell a more authentic story? Can I tell a more authentic story 20 years later that will serve me? Oh, yeah. What about tomorrow? Yep. How about now? Sure. So that process, that practice doesn't have to happen in the moment that you're having. I mean, it'd be great if you had the ability to do that. I think you got to do a ton of meditation and be the Dalai Lama to be able to get to the point where, like, the minute I have a negative reaction, that I can bring myself down. And I think he really can bring himself down very easily. But
So part of your model is to restrain the reaction for a time being, right? Because you had a reaction over there. If you wanted to let go of your emotions, you're like, oh, why would you go? And you had a reaction, but you restrained it, and you thought, let's go to the model. You could,
that's
because
true.
that's in your reflex. Because that's in your reflex, because this is your baby, but a lot of people might not know about it, so they don't have that reflex. So when you're about to go right out there, you go like, no, hold on a second, let me go to that. Okay, I'm in little me mode, let me authenticate myself. And then is that something?
You're right on the money. And in that story about my wife, the most authentic I could be in the moment was just to say, I need you to stay away from me because I don't want to blow a gasket. Like, that's all I had. And I knew that. And I knew also that with time, hours, that I would calm down. It's one of the things that's really important about, recognizing that you had said something a little earlier about, over time, the strength of a story tends to mellow out and diminishes. And so when you recognize that's kind of your natural state, is not to be in that little me mode, although we do it a lot, we recognize that those stories do diminish, and we give ourselves the ability to say, okay, I just need some time in this specific situation.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, shall we keep going with this?
Yeah.
So
let's go.
I'll talk about Enlighten Me a little bit later, but basically these are the three kind of personalities that I think we have. And so what I've done on the model is, you can see that on the left side, I put in negative emotion, because you know what we haven't talked about at all in any meaningful way is, gee, Saurav, how you feeling? Right? Like, I don't have that question in any of those three questions ever. Does it deal with feeling? I don't. I just know if my thinking is serving me or not. And even on the positive side, you can hear it, and people are like, yeah, I hope you're really good. And you're like, oh man, what are you whining about then? That you can almost hear it in their voices when they're on the positive side over here. So the other thing that's really fascinating is, if you think about it, above the line, you can get some crazy negative behavior and some crazy positive behavior. Think about manic depression, right? You can be manic on this side and super depressed on this side. You can be Hitler on this side, and you can be a cult leader on this side. And the emotion is so much stronger. And what you said earlier was right on the money. See, I told you you're going to be able to comment on all this. When you're below the line, when you're in authentic mode, there's less emotion, because I've got perspective around whatever it is that I'm looking at. Make sense?
Gotcha.
So what happens is, let me clear this, is that this is where we talked about, or I think we've talked about you call it the upside down pyramid, which is a great way to look at it. And so what happens is,
this is a journalism term, though. But there is a theory that's called the inverted pyramid method. It's used in creative writing, but like yours is also an inverted pyramid. You need to come up with a good marketing name for this thing.
I know, right? So if you think about something that you struggle with and just have not been able to find a way for it to, like, if you struggle in business and you're always struggling and you can't figure out why, you're in little me mode. If you are in, like me, have a relationship with your wife and a great relationship with your kids, you're in authentic mode. And if you are newly in love, you're down in here. It's actually one of the things I've just added to the model, where think about falling in love, or seeing, I think of America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent, the auditions, where they're just like spot on and people are tearing up because the kids are doing such a great job. That's where that is. And then do you drive?
I drive a motorcycle. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't drive a car.
I hope this isn't the case for you, but for most people that drive a car on a freeway for a long time, they'll occasionally wake up and like, oh my God, I've been driving for half an hour and have been completely in another world. So this area
Well,
is what
that
I
goes
call.
with that goes with the ride as well.
Does it?
I take my bike out on a ride sometimes, 60 kilometers. Oh my God, it's so serene, and you get to see India, man. It's so beautiful.
Oh,
There
I
are
bet.
trees here that oh my God, escape nature. It's enlightenment as well. So you're talking about love,
Absolutely.
nature. Because a couple of days ago, I was on a ride, man. It was raining. All right, it was raining. So I had my laptop fixed up. I need to pick it up from a different town. It's a different city. It's a small town, but take my bike out and fill the gas. Hit the road. It was morning as well. It's like 4 or 5 a.m. It was raining. I was soaked. But there was an interception that has so many trees by the road, and there was birds chirping. And I was like, even though I am soaked, but I'm taking it in, and it feels so. For that moment, you are enlightened. I felt enlightened.
And you were. And you were. And you were. This is the thing. One of the things that's very common in people that want to be enlightened is that what they try to do is they try to behave enlightened, like we talked about a little earlier. Oh, Saurabh, how are you? And you're like, dude, it's not resonating with me. But what you were talking about was being in here where, in down here where some of it you're probably able to appreciate through your thoughts and what you see, and other parts of it you were just stone cold silent and just like awe and
Soaking it in.
Yeah. And so people go in and out of here all the time and don't recognize it. Like we need to teach people.
Can you be enlightened in negative thoughts as well? Like, let's say you're in a bar fight. Can you get enlightened in a bar fight? He's about to beat the knockers out of you. Can you be? Oh, I'm enlightened. I'm enlightened.
Well, here's you're demonstrating the answer. Maybe not in the moment, but look at you. You've got. It's funny. It's something that you look back. Think about all of the negative stuff that happens to us. So much of it, when we're in the moment, is awful. But when we look back on it, it's funny, and it's, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
So that thought, extracting the other version of that. So were you saying that? I really do believe in it because because you said you don't focus on feelings. I agree, because feelings are fucked up. Feelings are bad. Feelings are made out of thoughts, and thoughts are made out of stories. That's why I do believe in the model, because the thoughts that we have that influence our feelings comes out of a narrative.
Yep.
Right? Because all right, right now, I'm having a podcast with you. What are the thoughts in my mind? Okay, I have to ask you a question, or here, there, I have to juggle. And then there is a feeling. I can probably feel good or bad about it. But you're saying that doesn't. But you're saying focusing on the story in itself. Do not be driven by feelings.
Well, and the one thing I want to correct you on from my perspective is thoughts aren't fucked. I mean, they can be, let there be no doubt. Mm-hmm. But if you look at thoughts instead of as being facts, and instead being indicators, their thoughts, especially the bad ones, are the ones that move you, that if you have the benefit of this type of thinking, that move you to a place that you solve those. Does that make sense? So don't feel like, I don't want anybody to go, oh my God, thoughts, they're such a pain in the ass, they're the worst things ever. They're not. They're part of what drives you in the way. So pull up the model for a second.
Like sometimes, like, this is something that everybody got their demons. So like a couple of days, like I'm on SSRIs. I am a little like I've been diagnosed with anxiety disorders and
Hmm.
depression, so I do take these medications. And even with like the first time I took it, it was like, okay, I'm trying to feel a little better. But then there are times that you, even after you're taking that, you're like, holy shit. Because that's the problem with this, like people on depression medication as well. You just like, oh my god. But still, I'm taking this, I'm trying to solve this, but still, holy shit. And you just lay down, and you're thinking about the same thought again and again. But what medications and probably even CBT does, and I'm only saying it because I think your model could actually help people with depression and all, because CBT talks about a lot about perspective building and talking about,
Hmm.
looking at different angles and all of that. But yours talks about
CBT
uh,
and this are almost identical, just so that you
okay,
know. Cognitive based therapy is about changing stories. As a matter of fact, there's actually, when I found, do you know what do you know the term cognitive distortions?
yeah,
So basically,
uh,
cognitive distortions are a series of common stories that people tell. I'm not good enough. I catastrophize. I have black and white thinking. If you think of if your audience goes and looks up cognitive distortions, there are all kinds of lists of them, and every single one, period, are above the line thinking, little me thinking. And so everything that you're trying to do with cognitive based therapy, which is and I'm a big fan of therapy. I mean, one of the things I've heard is that, you know, medicines are great, but what makes them really great is when they're combined with therapy.
therapy.
And so
True.
if you think about cognitive based distortions, cognitive distortions live up here, and everything that CBT, that cognitive based therapy is designed to do, is to help you to tell stories down here. Because guess
Yeah.
what? Depression doesn't live here. And this is one
Yeah.
of the things that, like, what I want you and everybody else to understand is, I get your depression. I suffer from depression. I have depression too, and it comes and it goes. But it comes and it goes. Like, we have this tendency to say, well, you've got depression. Well, that's not a very accurate statement. And that's one of the things that, I say in terms of practices down here is, use language in a way that serves you. You know what? Sometimes I'm depressed and sometimes I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
figuring out what it
No,
is
even
that's. Go
with
ahead.
even with clinical depression, a lot of people are, feel it. It's permanent. But even people with clinical depression, I think there are moments where you neutralize it. I mean, you're not depressed all the time. You,
Right.
you just have that dominant depression is dominant there, more dominant there, but
Right.
you still have.
Right.
So yeah, I know what you mean. But the question over here, Chris, is that, okay, you're saying that we could um, use it with CBT
It
as
is
well.
CBT.
Okay,
It's the same message. We're starting with
all right.
stories up here and trying to
So
move
my
them.
question is, so let's say somebody is depressed. Let's talk about practicality, right?
Okay.
Now, what does he do? He asks himself these questions. Does this story serve me in this moment?
Yes.
And he
Oh
says
my
like,
God.
okay,
Think
okay,
about it. Just think about if everybody with depression, and I'm not
mm,
saying it's going to cure it, but it's
mm,
going to make your life a whole lot better if all you had the ability to ask was, gee, is this serving me in this moment? And I wonder if there's a better story that I can come up with.
mm,
Yesterday, I had a rough day. Man, coming up with good stories, authentic stories, was not really happening. And part of that answer for me is then just let it be and don't resist it. But
mm.
can you imagine people who suffer from, we know that even schizophrenics who practice telling better stories do significantly better. So this is where it wraps into the science. We know that from a neuroplasticity standpoint, that telling stories that are authentic, that serve me, help my mental health.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And then I really do feel that this is something that could really help. But a lot of people, when they are like clinically depressed, it has a physical toll on you.
Yes.
They have migraines and all of that.
Yep.
And this is something that I've also had, or a panic attack. And
Hmm.
in those time moments, you probably do not focus on story at all. But what choice do you have?
Exactly.
What choice do you have? That's the thing. A lot of people say that this is something, this is berserk because therapy doesn't work, because when you have an anxiety attack, you cannot get out of, you need to take medication. Agree. You need to substitute, you need to use it as a supplement. You need to think about these thoughts again and again with the medication or all sorts of things, because guess what? Even the medications run out. Even the other stuff, CBT also helps you to a certain point. But when you do not have that reflex, when you hit rock bottom, guess what? What other choice do you have? You need to accept every positive thing, or you could go spiral down.
And that's really important from my standpoint, that I don't want anybody to ever think that they can just stay in a great place all the time. You're always going to go up and down. If you suffer from depression, you may go further down and have to
Okay.
endure it a little bit longer. But if you have the benefit of things like cognitive based therapy, the ability to say, gee, where am I right now? Oh, it's not pretty. I'm right here. Just that awareness, that self-awareness of where I am, helps to decrease over time with practice, with therapy, so that I end up, my panic attacks are less and less. And at some point I realize, oh, those are just thoughts. That's just a story that I'm reacting to. And I am now at a point where I can choose not to react to it. And that is all practice. Practice, 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 practice. Practice. Nobody, if anybody looked at this and said, oh, I'll feel better overnight, you weren't talking to me.
Absolutely. Yep. Let's quickly touch the enlighten me part, because we're touching the hour mark.
Yep.
We need to wrap it up in a couple of minutes. So,
Yep. So let me just show you. Oops, hold on. So this is, sorry, come on. I'm still, so this is the emotion that we've talked about, left and the right, and then neutral, where I think you and I both put stoicism as a little bit above the line. And what I'd like stoicism to be is connected, but still able to be, not feel like I'm overpowered by it. And then the next part of the model is that there's this enlightened area. And what a lot of people in Christianity refer to this as the peace of Christ, or this little light of mine. And what I think that is I think that we're a perspective of infinite intelligence, of God, of spirit, of the universe. I don't care what you call it. You can call it anything you want. But this area down here is fed by these things down here. And so when you're in that place where you're on, and we think that, up here we're like, oh no, that can only happen in a quiet place where there's no distractions. Bullshit. You can be on a motorcycle in an intersection with gorgeous trees and be way down here. And,
gotcha.
And infinite people are
appreciating nature, because nature has that divine touch, that spiritual. So you're talking about spiritualness, but spiritualness could be anywhere. Like, it doesn't need to probably be in that. And that's one of the things I showed you, one of the last interviews that I did with a Satanist.
Yes.
And he thinks that for him, the spirituality lies in rebellion. For them, for a lot of people, not devil worshiping, because devil worshippers, devil worshippers literally go out there and slash throats and murder babies and devour, I don't know, all sorts of things. They're goddamn gods and vampires, whole range of it. But love for him, this is one of the things that I really intrigues me about Satanism as well. I'm probably going to interview a couple of more people from the left-hand path as well, because they do identify rebellion as something philosophical. It's a representation to them, and that representation in itself enlightens them. So when they chant, mantras, for example, Satan. Okay, they focus on Satan. They focus on Lucifer. They're not necessarily worshiping him. They're actually meditating on that story that of his, that he fell, that he was sort of victim. Well, a lot of people have different versions. So they feel that he was victimized. And that story, they meditate upon it. They chant his mantras and all that, and it sort of enlightens them. And I do believe what you think. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, look, I saw about half of that interview, and you know what? It's not my thing, so I'm not going to comment on it too much. I think that, I think in some ways that guy lives up here, and in some ways he lives down here, and that is what it is. You know what? There are people that are going to live up here or up here all their lives, and there's nothing we're going to be able to do to change it. Just is what it is. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of other factors that play into that, but the bottom line is, if I'm down here, there are a lot of ways to get there, and it's nature is a way to appreciate it, and I'm all for it. But there's I have a just really vivid memory of 30 years ago driving down the freeway in a rag top with it down and playing REM and just being like, nothing can touch me. Life is amazing. That's enlightenment. It's
or a movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember I was watching a movie, Due Date, with Zach Galvin and Robert Downey Jr., and that was a great song. It had a song, Fleet Foxes had a song. It was so stuck with me, and so it's literally like they were driving through the states. If you have watched the movie, I don't know. It was funny as well, but part of it was they were showing side of America that, like, people from I live in India. I've never been to the States, but of course I've seen that the side of America that most of the people watch is in New York or LA.
Yeah.
But the ones like you're driving through Ohio or so like New Orleans and all of that, and the riverside and the trains passing, and there's a freeway, and there are trucks and cars and the grasslands and the livestocks, and the restrooms and the motels. This is the thing that really, and the sunlight. It's an experience in itself. So even if it's virtual, it helped me get enlightened, I think.
Yep.
A little bit.
And that's one of the big takeaways for me in this, is that enlightenment was, people think, oh, enlightenment's a place that I want to go. And it is a place that you want to go, but you're going to go in and out of it. Let's help you to recognize when you're there, for one, because most people don't consider those things enlightenment. But when you start to, then you start to have more experiences like that, because you're kind of more often putting yourself below the line. So that's the model. And it applies to relationships. It applies to how I lead people, how I work, how I raise my kids, everything. There's nothing interpersonally that this doesn't apply to, but most importantly, to my own mental state of being. And I can tell you that it's made a difference for me in a huge way. My kids now ask their kid. My oldest asks her kids, how does that serve you? Oh my God, what a great question. Versus getting angry. And I can't believe you're doing that. Hey, how are you doing that? How's that serving you? Oh, well, I have to think about it now.
Well, so do you have, how many kids do you got?
3.
Okay,
20,
got grandchildren?
22, 26, and 35, I think.
Got grandchildren?
3.
3 grandchildren as well?
Yeah, 1, 5, and 6.
Oh my! So you've like, how does it feel to be a grandpa?
You know what? It's lovely. It's not. A lot of people. I have friends that are very much into, oh, I want to have grandchildren. It's great. I love it. It's not the end of the world. It's, but it's cool. Well, I think what, for me, the biggest thing is seeing my kids raise their kids. That's huge. Like that's big stuff. That's where you really know what kind of a job you did as a parent.
Right.
And so far, that's been pretty good.
Well, it really interests, like what you got over here is it's quite, it looks great. It's amazing. But what you want to do with it though? You want to publish it?
Yeah.
In a book? Are you working on a book?
I am working on a book. I am doing a lot of this. I think of doing these podcasts is similar to a band that spends a year or two going to clubs every night and playing. Right. I'm just trying to get the message out there and hone and polish what I'm doing. But yeah, but what I want most of all is I want for people to figure out how to apply it in their own lives. And there's all kinds of things that you can do that are already out there. But when you frame it up like against this model, it makes it so much easier to understand and to be aware of where I am moment to moment, and then have that goal of getting below that line into an authentic place. And then much more often, being in an enlightened place.
Right. Everybody wants to be enlightened. What can I say?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a way to meaning this, a lot of people talk about chasing happiness. And I know that by practicing and using this model that I'm in an authentic place a lot more of the time. And I feel way more meaning in my life. And when you have meaning in your life, happiness just follows that. So, and I still have places that I struggle, and that's okay too. Like that's that stoic thing, like where I think stoicism should be. It's okay that, I still have time that I'm up in little me land. So.
Fair enough. All right, we have touched the hour mark, ladies and gentlemen. An exit monologue is a must, ladies and gentlemen. It's been amazing to have Chris on the show again. You probably would have been better if we have done it yesterday night, but
no,
this
is perfect.
I just woke up a couple of minutes. I was literally like, hey, you know what? Let's get this shit done, because I had made a commitment, and somehow we need to squeeze the productivity out of something positive. And I do really believe that this thing over here is quite positive. So I want you to reflect on it. I want you to use it in your life as well. We will put nuggets of this videos later when it's in the marketing phase. For now, the hour-long broadcast, if you haven't watched it live, probably most of you haven't, go ahead and skip through the video after it's published on the YouTube channel of Englix, because over there I'm rebranding the brand, because I have 80 plus broadcasts. I'm trying to republish all of them on the channel. Not all of them are going to be published because some of them were not good enough. But guess what? This episode is definitely good enough to be marketed as hell. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Templeton. Chris, you got an exit monologue. Go ahead.
I want you to have a more meaningful life. That's the bottom line. You can go to 𝐂𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻 you can go to my YouTube channel. If you search for 𝐂 the Stories We Tell, you'll see that logo. And by all means, feel free to DM me on Facebook, Chris Templeton, I think I am, or actually it's at 𝐂 the Stories We Tell. I'd love to chat with anybody, good or bad. And for the haters who live above the line, happy to talk to you too.
I would leave the links of his YouTube and Instagram on the description below if you're watching it on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Templeton, give him love, and even if you give him hate, he's probably going to authenticate it.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, I'll see you on another episode soon enough. For now, I have to go celebrate because I cracked a goddamn entrance. See you on the other side.